I was trying to get fashion work by flying back and forth between Maui and Oahu. Nothing was happening. So I was just like, well, geez, what else can I do? Let me look into, well, there's film and television work, so surely there's got to be commercial productions that are being done here. And I did my own production for years while I was in Europe, and while I was in that, let me see what I can do with that. So I started to meet with all of the top production houses here. And then that was how I began to meet the network of professionals that live here. And just, MTV ended up coming here. And I was just like, you know what? This is an opportunity just for me to network and work side by side with a lot of the people that I already know. So I did a season of that, just like as PA, worked my way into the second season when they came back. I started to work with all of the location producers, started to kind of like see and learn what it was that they did. Time went on. I worked on a lot of other commercial productions as the years went on. Temptation Island came, and I was able to jump on that and network really effectively to when the second season came around, I got hired as an associate producer. And that was where I really sort of got my feet wet. I used a lot of the connections at that time. I had been there for, I don't know, I'd been already here for like more than 6 years. So I knew a lot of people. And one of the things I really saw and took notice of from working with all those big crews is just the ego that they bring from the mainland. And it just doesn't go over here. You're lucky to shoot.
Nick's told me about that a lot. Actually,
yeah. And it's different here because, these are tribal lands. These hotels and these resorts are built on burial grounds. A lot of the people who work for these resorts, their family have been moved off the very land for the place that they're forced to work for. So it's different. It's different. But again, my production sort of experience grew through that. While working on sort of like these Lifetime and some of like these Hallmark movies, I was able to meet Kavika, and there was a producer there that he approached and said, "Hey man, like if we came up with something that was produced locally, would you back us?" And he was just like, he's just like, did you guys ever see like Letterkenny? Or like Dairy Girls or Reservation Dogs. And he was just like, yeah, we could do that. And then that was from that inspiration and from Kavika's talk with him came the idea for Moku Moku. And then from, I believe, and maybe you guys can, hopefully you guys will have him on the show. From that moment, when he started to kind of come up with his, it took us like at least like 2.5 or like 3 years to kind of like get it together.
That's incredible background on that. And, one of the things that comes out of that story for me is are there enough crew, talented people? Are there post-production houses there to actually do it? But I know before I get into that, Nick had something he wanted to ask. I want to pivot here to Nick before we get into some audience polls. Nick, what's popping?
Yeah. So I was going to ask about the authenticity, and I feel like it can be a challenge when you're talking about, I don't want to say diverse, but local culture. And because you want to be authentic, but it can be very easily turned into a caricature. So how do you manage that? Because there's elements, I've seen Moku Moku, right? I've seen a bunch of those things. And there's parts of it that from, my experience, and of course my wife is from Hawaii, our experience there and her experience, like you see some things like, oh yeah, that's straight pigeon. But then you have these times where it's like, you can tell that they inserted the pigeon, right? Like you said, where it's like, you wouldn't have said it that way if you're from there, but you can tell sometimes. And the same thing is true with, let's say, urban culture, right? When they have something about Black folks that are in a certain area where it's like, I see what you're trying to do, but maybe you just upped it one little notch where now the thing that you're trying to show as authentic seems more like a caricature. So for some people, you're celebrating it, right? Or for some people, you're just making it comedic, right? That's what you do in comedy. You got to take it a little bit up, just got to level it up. But then at the same time, it could look like blackface, right? or
I thought
whatever.
Blackish was guilty of that, Nick.
Well, oh
The
no,
show Blackish.
I didn't watch that show because of it. Like I could not handle that.
And I know
at
that's
all.
controversial. People
No,
like that show.
that's
I never
me, bro.
liked it.
Yeah,
I just
me
thought
neither.
It wasn't a really good mirror to black people.
No, it was blackface to me. So that's so how do you handle that from your own perspective, and how do your people handle it? Like, it's difficult. So for me, when I watch some of Moku Moku, I get some of that. Like some of I think the aunties and the uncles, they're straight up like that's straight just pigeon. That's natural. Some of the younger cats, you feel like, oh, you inserted that word right there, right? But that might be my perspective.
Yeah.
So what is the perspective like from the people of Maui who are watching Moku Moku?
Great, insightful question, Nick. Thank you for that. I would love to speak to that. We have a native Hawaiian head writer who puts his stamp of approval on that very thing. Kavika, the show is from his experience of being native Hawaiian and going through that disconnected kind of feeling that a lot of native Hawaiians actually have. He and Jonathan, between the three of us, they have lived on Maui the longest, but we rely on the authenticity and the experience of Kavika. And, it hasn't let us down at all. And all of our lead characters have lived on the island. And yeah, you asked that authenticity. Our casting can't be beat because the very people that we cast are of the community. So it's a lived experience. So, if you do a line reading with somebody who's actually been to war, you're going to get a much richer read, and they're going to be able to put a lot more feeling into it. And then our sets, the way our sets run is that we rely on our actors, a lot, to be able to infuse and add a little bit more. I mean, like it's just a real great collaboration, and it was exciting to see. I'm sure you guys have seen all these behind the scene interviews with people from Seinfeld, and they saying things like, "Oh man, well, the first time we sat down, we knew we had something, and this and this." And I always kind of think, "Oh, everybody just says that." That's really the feeling that we had the first day we had a table read, and we were falling down laughing because everybody was putting their 2 cents and their experience into it, and that was what really made the distance and a difference. And that's, Nick, how we really address authenticity, and it's an open conversation. After the first screening that we had, we sparked a lot of arguments. There were a lot of people, "Whoa, well, why don't you have, him do this and do this?" And, you sit there and you listen. And from my experience, like usually, like my response was, "Hey man, I feel exactly the same way you feel." And this is a work in progress. And I'm glad that you brought that to my attention. This is like a first season. We have an arc of possibly 5. We'll address that. But even if I'm getting a negative reaction to you, that's going to inform us moving forward as a responsible show in representing what everyone's feelings are authentically.